any matter that he deems fit for this occasion.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have Minister Inda Ware coming to speak to us, main speaker, on agriculture, community farming, and food security. What I think all of us would agree is one of the four most pertinent issues facing us as a small island state, Barbados, today in 2022. Diana, of course, our president, would have welcomed everyone, but I would, of course, wish to especially welcome my comrade, neighbor, member of parliament, Dr. Romel Springer, to first meeting, branch meeting. We will obviously work closely together. I am his constituent, in fact. So when I need something done, I'm going to do like what my constituents do and call him too. Romel, of course, is parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Public Works and Water Resources. I think he mainly, though, has more responsibility for water resources. But I'm sure that Romel will hear this afternoon about the roads that need repairing in St. James North, including the one that we traveled on that some people just out here, Rotterdam, that some people already in the audience live on. Like to welcome, I almost would call him Senator Khalil. Khalil, of course, 18 years old, someone with a tremendous political future ahead of him. Once he keeps his head on and focused, because of the vagaries of our constitutional setup, where we have an unelected Senate, even though the Barbados Labour Party has won all 30 seats, you have a Senate, as Romel will know well because he was in the Senate in our last term, and on 3 occasions at least, bills that we sent from the elected chamber did not pass the Senate. So because of an elected Senate, Khalil was not allowed to become the youngest senator ever in the history of Barbados. But his future is bright, and you know, everything happens for a reason. I know that he's on, I believe, 2 or 3, certainly at least 2 major reform commissions, the Constitutional Reform Commission, which obviously is an extremely important appointment, and I believe he's also on the Educational Reform Commission, which we're at his primary school. And we all know the importance of education to the people of Barbados, and I think he's on the Youth Commission as well. He's on 3 commissions. Dr. Daniel Reed Murillo, who is here, welcome to her first branch meeting. And Daniel would have assisted in our successful re-election campaign in January, and no doubt she will say a few words here this afternoon. I know some Filipinos have started to arrive, and welcome to you all. Brenda, thanks for your prayers. Brenda is certainly one of the longest standing Barbados Labour Party members here right now. Brenda might even have joined the party before me. I joined in 1993, if I recall. And we have former permanent secretary, her brother, side of her, Edison Aline. Welcome, Edison, and everyone else. This is our first branch meeting, of course, since elections 5 months ago. And, you know, I again thank the constituents of St. James North for the confidence they've placed in me to be re-elected for the 3rd time as your member of parliament. I would work as assiduously and give my 200% as I always have done, and until, you know, it is time to retire. I certainly will not do like what happened in Grenada this week and overstay my welcome. I think a politician has to know when it is time to go. And as I said, that was demonstrated tangibly in the election a couple of days ago. So I'll speak for a little while until Indar comes, because Indar, of course, is our featured speaker this afternoon, on aspects relating nationally, of course, what we have been doing since the elections 5 months ago. Welcome, yes. And what some constituency matters as well. Jonathan, perhaps you could turn on the lights already, because it's already getting dark. Thanks. Now, the major issues I think that everyone would agree in Barbados right now is unemployment. And unemployment, of course, would have risen with the advent of COVID. We in the Barbados Labour Party government did our best to try and keep the unemployment rate as low as possible. We employed 3,700 people in COVID-related jobs. Some are here this afternoon from St. James North, whether in the roadside cleaning through NCC, whether through the ASS program when the volcano 100 miles away in St. Vincent exploded. And in fact, we got more ash than some parts of St. Vincent, and I understood that very clearly when I went to St. Vincent. I spent Easter weekend in St. Vincent. And we still, even though, 16 months, 15 months have passed, we're still employing the 1,500 persons who we employed in ash cleanup related jobs. Obviously, COVID related jobs through the Ministry of Health. We employed Ministry of Housing as well. And all these persons we employed to try to keep the unemployment rate as low as possible, because if we didn't employ them, we would have had to pay in welfare, because we have to sustain our people as much as we can. So unemployment, one of the four major issues facing us in the country right now. We know that housing is an issue and has always been, Arabelle, an issue, where the National Housing Corporation at any given time have over 25,000 people possibly applying for houses. And no government has been able to fulfill the expectations of anywhere near even 20% of its citizens who require housing. So that's another major issue. Of course, the cost of living, rising cost of living. And look, we're trying our best. We've capped the VAT on gasoline, gas products. Peter, welcome, Member of Parliament for St. Lucie, my friend and colleague. And he told me he would be coming. He's a team player of the highest order. And happy to have you, Peter, as part of your Northern Zone. So we have as well the cost of living. And look, there's only a certain amount we can do to deal with the cost of living, because, as you know, we've had COVID, we've had now the war in Ukraine by Russia, and that's a reality. Nothing we can do about this war. The supply chain from COVID had been interrupted, increasing the cost of everything we import into Barbados, some by 4 times in terms of the shipping costs. And there isn't much we can do. And even though people are calling on government to reduce the cost of living, it is a challenge. The Prime Minister is addressing the issue. I believe she is soon going to make another statement on how she can grant relief to the most vulnerable aspects of our society to shield as much as possible from the rising cost of living. But Indar will be coming to see how we can help ourselves to speak towards that in terms of community farming, because we got to grow. This is what our grandparents used to do. I born in St. Joseph, Coconut Grove, middle of an agricultural belt. So I know about agriculture. And a lot of our people are in St. James North and St. Andrew, of course, St. Lucie are farming. People whose livelihood and their ancestors to a large extent depended on the land and the working of the land. These are the major issues facing us. In terms of unemployment, the government of Barbados has set up, particularly since elections, a whole cadre, a whole set of training programs, free of course, and you get a stipend too. Construction Gateway, and I've sent, if I haven't sent these programs to 600 of my constituents, I haven't sent to one. 500, I don't know why I exaggerate. So we have Construction Gateway. 3,000 people have applied so far. At least that was the latest figure. The first cohort was about 600, training about 600 in terms of masonry, carpentry, bobcat driving, labor work, plumbing, electrical work, all right? Tiling, all of this, because we expect that we are on the brink of a construction boom. A lot of projects about to start in Barbados. I mean, we've had projects on the coast in St. James North and St. James Central that we know about. And we have to be able to have people, Barbadians, people who live here, CARICOM citizens who live here, trained to be able to take up these jobs. So we have this Construction Gateway program through the Ministry of Education and Vocational Training. 3 months to give you the basics in this. Obviously, more will come with experience. But, I mean, why should we have construction companies, as we do, applying for people, workers to come from Colombia, South America, people who speak Spanish, may not be as proficient in English as we are, but then too, we have to learn Spanish as a second language. That is very important. All right, we have some teachers here who I see nodding their heads in agreement. But we can't have fellas on the block, women as well, not employed in Barbados, and we importing people from Colombia. I don't even mind if we import them from CARICOM, because CARICOM is one single space. And as I said, there's no one who is more pro-CARICOM than I am in this country. You might be as pro-CARICOM, but you can't be more. Because I'm from a mixed Caribbean marriage, of course, and my parents met in Jamaica. So if it wasn't for the other islands, I would not be here. So we need people to take up these training opportunities that the government has given. Free of course, giving you a stipend, giving you internship. Not only Construction Gateway program, but we also have a whole set of programs through the Ministry of Community Development in terms of developing you as an individual. All right, gearing you for the world of work. Then we have the National Transformation Initiative, Dr. Alison Leacock's organization. And this is giving you training as well in citizenry and in other basic elements that increases your character and your personality to make you a better person, to develop you. Because we never stop learning. And as I've told my constituents, if the Prime Minister of Barbados has said that she has signed up for 2 of the courses and she's doing them, of course, subject to the time that she has, where any of us can do it, where anybody could do it. National Transformation Initiative online. All of these are part of your development. And so I really get a bit frustrated, good afternoon, when I hear some of our people saying that they can't find work or they want a job. And when I ask them, as I'm sure Rommel and Peter do as well, what skills do you have? You can't get anything out of them. Or you hear them say, I could do anything. And my response is, good afternoon. Well, you can't fly a plane. You can't fly a plane or spaceship to the moon. So come again, what can you do? And it's difficult. We giving you this opportunity. And this is after, of course, 12 years of free education between age 4 and 16, 17 that we've given you too. We're giving you a second opportunity as a young adult or as an adult to get trained, to get skills, to be able to provide for yourself and your family. And within, of course, this constituency, we have done that as best as we could. The last 8 Saturdays, we've had Vibes training program, life and work skills program, conducted by human resource management specialists, Rhonda Hudson-Bryan and Roger Husbands, change managers. And it's been extremely successful. Diana has been at almost all of them, bar the couple that she would have had Lions commitments for. She's wearing her Lions badge, a badge that I proudly wear. I wore the jacket up to yesterday at the former Postmaster General's funeral. He was a constituent, Herbie Niles, God rest his soul, and a former president of my Lions Club. Danielle went to the first session, the opening. Jonathan, acting constituency assistant, has been a tower of strength at all the sessions. Horace here has also assisted. And we've had all the people who I just mentioned, National Transformation Initiative, Ministry of Community Development, Vocational Training Board, Ministry of Labor, speaking about employment opportunities both in Barbados and overseas. We've had the trust fund facility also set up just after we came back into office, set up in October 2018, by virtue of which people who are setting up their own business or even wish to improve their business, self-employment, can borrow up to $5,000 from the Ministry of Small Business, which will go towards the equipment or some aspect of the business to give you greater capacity. All of that we're doing. No other countries, very few countries in the developing world, certainly developing Western world, have all these opportunities for our people. And through this program, and I've done it through my foundation, the Clarkson Foundation, Inc., which, and we raise funds every 15 or so months for these programs. And, 40, 50 young constituents between ages 17, 35 have been coming every Saturday religiously. This is what? Twice as many as we've had the previous 3 sessions. Some people over 40 even have asked to come, and we've said, yes, come. A lady who is getting an interview tomorrow at a local business place, which I organized for her on Friday. I called her up yesterday morning, come, you have an interview tomorrow morning. Come and prep for it, because yesterday at Mount Zion Missions we had mock interviews where, everyone had to dress like if they're going to a real interview, all right? And we made sure that they were just dressed in that manner. And 6 human resource managers, all female, I must tell you, interviewing and people and giving them feedback and guidance, because we also teach you how to write a CV and prepare for the interview. So all of that we're doing at constituency level, of course, in addition to what's happening at national level. In terms of the welfare system, of course, the Ministry of People Empowerment and elderly affairs is streamlining welfare, delivery of welfare services, something that has to be done. Because we went through COVID, unprecedented. We did our best in terms of delivery of welfare. Up to 8,000 families at some stage during the 2 years of COVID receives greater welfare assistance than normal from the government of Barbados, whether, of course, as you know, with constant food packages. On one occasion, March last year, we gave, 80%, 75% of the households packages that the Defense Force delivered. But we buttressed that by giving $600 a month in terms of grants to the most vulnerable. But look, COVID showed gaps in our welfare delivery. That's the truth. And it's not surprising because this was a humongous exercise. And what we're doing now is trying to streamline delivery of welfare to the most vulnerable by bringing together all the departments that deal with welfare and sustainability of our most vulnerable people into one department. Because one of the problems in Barbados is you have too many people dealing with too many things. And we know this because nobody wants to accept blame. So when something goes wrong, it's not me, it's them. It's not my department, it's their department. One department. Everything together. And we trust that the delivery of welfare will be better. But we, of course, want to take people, as many people as possible, off of welfare. There will be some who will remain on it. Every society has that, and it is impossible to get rid of. But intergenerational poverty is one of the issues that is affecting us seriously. That our grandmother was poor, suffering, had, maybe too many children that you could really deal with, not support, didn't have support from maybe the father of some of these children, and it boils down to your mom, same position, you now in the same position. We got to break this cycle somehow, because it can't be that because of our history that we remain in this position. And we will do our best to try and break this cycle of intergenerational poverty. So one of the programs I wish to do, God willing and God giving me the strength again through my foundation, is a young mother's empowerment program. Because, look, let's face it, a lot of the challenges we have surround the circumstances of young mothers who have more children than they could adequately look after. And sometimes you won't cry because there is, for example, a young guy, 8 years old, who's supposed to be going to this school, but during COVID, he didn't go to school. That is the truth. He had a tablet, but he up and down on truck or every day. Mother not able to deal with him. And the child care board has intervened. I know I've spoken to the young fella and speaking with him. Daniel was there, in fact. Almost forgot. We were in Cyan Hill 5 weeks ago, and we spoke with the young fella. And look, it's not his fault. It's the circumstances that he has found himself in. Clearly, he essentially said that boy, you don't get any love. So this is what we have to confront and deal with in Barbados. And we're trying our best, and like I said, I hope to be able to get a young mother's empowerment program off the ground to give some young mothers hope and try and give them some skills. What I think we will all agree on the issues is self-esteem, self-confidence. A lot of us do not have the self-confidence and the self-esteem and the belief in ourselves that we can do better than we are doing right now. In terms of local issues, the Ministry of Public Works, and we thank them, have done some work in Sion Hill, above Sober's Shop, just below Turtle Back Ridge. We know, and Peter would know, because don't mind Peter, in St. Lucie, passes that road when traveling from St. Lucie south, that once rain falls, or before, that Sober's Shop there used to be almost impassable. Those who live in this area, Brenda Edison, the attorneys know that well. So some work was done, a lot of work was done in December above that area. So we will see how it stands up. Of course, the rains have started, the hurricane season has begun. Work is supposed to be doing as we speak in Trents. Even though a couple people, when I spoke to them in Trents today, told me that they see no real signs of the wells being cleaned. The wells need to be expanded, but the Ministry of Public Works has told the Prime Minister that they're doing work, because she sent me, her personal assistant, a WhatsApp from them. So we will see what happens, because we all know that, again, 10 minutes of rain, Trents flood out. You need a boat to get through. And we have the parliamentary sec here to speak about it. Roads, St. James North, and Diana will tell you we spoke about this up to today, a problem with roads in St. James North. And you know, we don't grudge anybody any other parts of Barbados getting roads. Peter, as I said, major issue in this constituency, the Scotland district, just on Tuesday last sitting of Parliament voted $260 million for road repairs in Scotland district. That's St. Joseph, St. Andrew, St. Lucie, parts of St. Peter, St. John, I believe maybe parts of St. Thomas, but St. James North not in the Scotland district. During the estimates debate, when I questioned the Ministry of Public Works and their Deputy Chief Technical Officer, he said that a decision had been taken to start roads in the south of Barbados. Of course, St. James not far from the south of Barbados. I didn't worry to continue to question him, because it might have been embarrassing, and you know, you gotta be a team player, but I didn't understand that, because everybody in Barbados pays taxes, right? And Peter here laughing. Peter know why, because we had a conversation. But the north of Barbados, and this is a political meeting, this is not Sunday school. Don't mind, this is Sunday. This is a political meeting. The north of Barbados is the bedrock of the Barbados Labour Party. Support has been for the last 70 years since adult suffrage. And I regret that I wasn't in Parliament when they had this debate on roads last Tuesday, but I, of course, was in Guyana. Sorry, not Guyana, Trinidad, representing Barbados at a CARICOM Disabilities Conference organized by Impact Justice. And we'll speak about that as well. So I wasn't there. If not, I would have certainly raised issues as I've done. But from the time I, in fact, was nominated to run in this constituency in 2012, I've been asking about roads. Now, the Minister, Honourable Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Transport and Works, Santia, has promised that some roads would be done, including this one, Rotdunder, which is the #1 priority road, Kimberley. And the attorneys, as you all know, when we got into office in 2018, all of us were asked to name one road in our constituencies that we would want repaired, and I unhesitatingly named Rotdunder as the road. But there are 19 roads that over the various times, over the past 12 years, I've written various ministers of public works and transport about repairing. So Santi has promised that 4 roads will be repaired during this financial year. And I mean, I take Sandhya at her word. She and I go far back. We shared Lord Chambers together before we became cabinet ministers in 2018. So I look forward to some roads being repaired in St. James North. I understand the money is coming from CAF because, as you said, St. James North is not part of the Scotland district. But it can't be excluded because, Rommel, the reality of the situation is that people at St. James North feel that they have supported the Barbados Labour Party since 1951. 15 out of 16 elections, the Barbados Labour Party has won this seat. 15 out of 16. There's no other parish besides St. Thomas that has that record. None. St. Thomas and St. Peter. They're the only two that have such a record of support for the Barbados Labour Party, and we feel, people of St. James North, because I'm only their mouthpiece, feel that such loyalty and support for the Barbados Labour Party should be rewarded. Because the reality of the situation is that when the Dems in office, not one thing is done in St. James North because they know they can't win the seat. When I was an opposition MP between 2013 and 18, the Dems told me straight, Hinkson, we ain't doing nothing for you. So you can write as much as you want. We ain't doing nothing for you. We know we can't win the seat. You ain't getting nothing. Like if it's me, it ain't me. It ain't me at all. I have been elected to work on behalf of 7,600 voters in St. James North, plus the children, and I get only speaking on their behalf. So this is where we are with roads, and we look forward to seeing these 4 roads that have been promised in this financial year being done. Also, the Western Fish Market is on stream to be renovated. The money is coming from the Barbados Port Inc. to do that. Fish market, as you know, we did refurbish some fish markets in our first term of office. I mean, Pile Bay and I think Oystins as well. I think Concept Bay as well too, right? And Tent Bay in St. Joseph. And Western Fish Market is the next scheduled fish market to be refurbished through monies from Barbados Port Inc. Minister Lisa Cummings, of course, Senator, is in charge of the Barbados Port Inc. And she has told me that work should start hopefully within the next couple months, that tenders should be going out by the end of this month. So I'm giving her until the end of this month. You know that next week I will be in touch with her to see if the tenders were issued and persons selected as yet to renovate this fish market. I went down there on 3 occasions with the previous minister, Kurt Humphrey, who is now Minister, of course, for People Empowerment. And we had plans there. We looked at the plans. We involved, of course, those who have a stake in the fish market, the community, in terms of the plans. We told them that what they had there, and Melissa is here? No? Okay. Some people from Western are here. Certainly I see some people who work in fish markets. They said, look, you don't have to spend so much money, this too elaborate. And we showed them how we could cut down on the cost. Because you didn't need nothing so elaborate there. So we look forward to the Western Fish Market as well being started. So there are the local issues. Of course, we have the Clean and Green project, and Play Park was set up very near Marianne's house in Duglin Road, and they'll probably do another one in Mount Stanfast that I've asked for. Sandor is here, right? Sandor, yeah. I was in touch with Minister Adrian Ford yesterday, Friday, and he got someone to call me yesterday on it. So I'm going to link you up with that person to show him the area that you and I went to a couple weeks ago in Mount Stanfast. We have, of course, my role in the new government, and I am, of course, as you know, chairman of the National Advisory Committee on Disabilities. Now, let me say something about this. You know, a lot of people ask why I'm not a minister. And I've said so, and I'm going to say it again. Right now, having been a minister, albeit just 26 months, being chairman of a National Advisory Committee on Disabilities, persons with disabilities, and being given the responsibility to come up with a policy for people with disabilities and propose legislation by the end of November is quite honestly, and I speak from my heart, more important to me than being any minister. That is the truth. I came into politics, and I have said this from the beginning, but not for my desire to help people with disabilities, I probably would not have gone into elective politics. The people in here who want an elective a political career. And that is great. Peter and Romel will tell you there's no higher service to your country than being in the Parliament of Barbados. That is the truth. You have a unique opportunity to effect change, transform society and economy in the country. And you know, you have to give back. Everybody who is privileged to have received a sound education and sound training from the community has to give back, in my opinion, at the highest level in terms of volunteerism and otherwise. Because quite frankly, a lot of politics is volunteerism, because Peter and Romel will tell you, despite concerted people's opinions, your salary isn't that big. That is the truth. I was in Trinidad, like I said, Peter and Romel, when I tell you all, I'm not going to say here, the perks that Trinidad members of Parliament get, believe you me, we are nowhere near. So this is giving back. And my desire was always to make life better for people with disabilities in this country. And I spent over 30 years so involved, whether it's through the Lions Clubs of Barbados, whether it's through the Salvation Army, of which I was a director, you know, whether it's through the Council of Disabled, of which I was a director up to the time that I became a member of Parliament. And therefore, if I could assist with bringing in disabilities legislation in this country, that would be my mark. I would feel that I have served my usefulness as an elected politician. My sister, as you know, is born deaf, and hence my desire from the time I was young to help people with disabilities. So over the next 5 weeks, we need to meet with every single ministry. And Ramel, I've been in touch with Santia this morning and told her, you know, that I need to meet with her. I've given a couple of dates. She has responded to see what is the policy of each ministry in terms of people with disabilities. Of course, education is one of the major ministries for that, because even though we have had free education, quote unquote, since over 60 years or so, a lot of children with disabilities still practically have to pay for their education. We have been fortunate that in a lot of the cases, some of the foreign trust companies, the foreign-based foundations like Sandy Lane Trust and Maria Holder Trust and Derek Smith pay or subsidize their education. But the reality of the situation is that most children with disabilities in Barbados are born to poor families. That is the reality. they can't afford this education. And it isn't only, of course, education, because of the aids that you have to get for them. In some cases, you got to retrofit your home and put ramps.
Will everyone please stand?
So we have not had a policy on people with disabilities for 20 years, since they had a green paper on disabilities, which was laid in Parliament in 2000, year 2000, and then a white paper laid in Parliament on the 30th of August 2002. And since then, of course, we have signed and ratified a United Nations Convention on people with disabilities. We ratified it on the 27th of 27th of February 2013. And that's the previous government. You will see by the year, 6 days after the election. But nothing was done to concretize our signature to this convention. And let me explain. When Barbados signs a convention, a treaty, whether it's at the United Nations or otherwise, we are internationally bound to bring legislation bringing into force in Barbados the provisions of that convention. And Kimberly knows that well as, of course, a labor and trade union expert, signatures at the ILO. And of course, we recognize Kimberly not only as a constituent, but as president of the National Union of Public Workers. So we are in breach of our international obligations in not bringing in disabilities legislation in Barbados so far. So it is incumbent on us to bring it in. We are already behind because Bahamas has legislation, Guyana has since 2010, Jamaica since 2014, but they have only now been able to bring in to force their disabilities legislation in February this year, because they did not have regulations before. And in addition to an act, we need regulations to operationalize the act. And Antigua has it. So, you know, I suppose in some cases nothing before its time, because again, we have set up a law reform commission with some erudite, some of the brightest legal minds, not only in Barbados, but in the Caribbean. Sir David Simmons, former Chief Justice and Attorney General, is chairing it. And they approached us, in fact, saying that they're willing to pay a consultant to work with us to bring in disabilities legislation. So a brilliant University of the West Indies lecturer has been assigned to do it, retained to do it, to work with us on this legislation. He's also worked on a draft legislation for St. Vincent last year, which is his country of birth, by the way. He's married to a Barbadian. And we look forward to proposing to the Cabinet of Barbados such legislation, and also policy. So meeting with all the ministries will be able to inform us on policies. And I think I wrote in there on Friday to meet with him as well, combined with the Ministry of the Environment, because some ministries we're going to have to double up to be able to get through before crop over weekend. So this is my role in this government, my immediate role, to work on the disabilities. And look, the last census in 2010 stated that we had about 11,500 people who had disabilities in Barbados, about 4% of the population. It would be much more, it will be more than that now. Don't let me say much. COVID alone, Danielle will tell you, has made a lot of people who didn't have disabilities before, some form of disabilities. Between COVID and the one we had before, what's the one from, that another one a few years ago that some people hadn't recovered from. Chikungunya, right. Between the two of them, got a lot more people with disabilities. And when you multiply that by, let's say, 3, because you have to deal with the caretakers now of these people with disabilities. You have to deal with those who they have to depend on support. It's a good percentage of people who we have to treat too in terms of disabilities. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, a society has to be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable people. You can't only deal with those that good. And I could walk out of here this evening and get a disability, cripple for the rest of my life, fall down on my back. Could happen with anybody. So when I hear my deputy chairperson, Senator Carrie-Ann Ifill, because she was president of the Senate, I'm the only thing about the American political system I like, once a president, always a president. Once a secretary of state, you always. So Senator Ifill. And she spoke about the situation when we had our launch at the beginning of this month, that a landlord was very willing to rent a house to an individual. But when he realized that a person with disabilities was going to live in the house, he then said no. I mean, that is something that I cried over when I heard. And not 20 years ago, you know, this year. This year. It reminded me of when I first went to England as a little boy, 16 months old, in 1962. And you would call people, my parents would call people, and they would say, yes, we have room available in our house, because you're renting 1 bedroom, you know. That is what we lived under. But then when you go to the house and they see a black house taken, and you see signs, no cats, no dogs, no blacks, and we condemn that rightly. England dealt with that by bringing in prevention of racial discrimination legislation in the early 70s. But we rightly condemn that because it is wrong. There's right and wrong in life, and that is wrong. But yet we have people here who would not want to rent their house to someone because they got a disability. So Bahamas, for example, Jamaica, has legislation that says all public buildings got to be retrofitted within 18 months to be able to accommodate people with disabilities. And that is the kind of legislation we need to give people with disabilities a better opportunity in terms of employment, because the last census we had in 2010 said that 90% of people with disabilities of working age were unemployed. So we have to empower them, whether through employment in the public service or self-employment. We got to educate them. We got to make Barbados, both natural and built, accessible to them. We have to involve them in participation in every aspect of this country and include them in everything. So in situations, and we will speak, as I said, all ministries, but plus the Electoral Boundaries Commission, because as my colleagues know, I would have brought to light, especially in 2018, Peter and Inda, situations where people with disabilities told me that in 2013, when they went to the polling station with, let's say, the mother or friend, the election agent told them the mother or friend can't vote for them. Blind person, that they got to vote for them. Well, what nonsense is that against the law? Because you don't know how that election agent going to vote. Because you can't see how he voting. You tell him he won't vote for Edmund Hinkson, but he vote for the other person. So it's things like that that are real situations in this country, and we therefore have a duty to bring public awareness to the people of Barbados in terms of the issues facing people with disabilities. But I've spoken enough. We have Indar here. Inda is my good friend, not only my colleague, but my friend. Inda has been one of the best ministers. Not many politicians would stand up and raise their hand to be Minister of Agriculture, you know. But Inda has been able to lead many initiatives, and we look forward to hearing what he has to say. Thank you. John, Jonathan. The white. The white? Oh, you. All right.
A conversation that I hope would inspire you. I am very sure that what is taking place globally, and indeed what we are asked to do in Barbados, and particularly as a government at this time, is perhaps the greatest challenge we as a people would have faced for many decades, perhaps very close to the days of the 1930s. And it is significant that we note this because as I speak to you, we still have globally 193 million people who are food insecure. Food insecure means that you are going for like sometimes 2 or 3 days without a meal at all. And that number has increased 80% over the pre-COVID period. So that if you were to do a detailed analysis of it, it is easy to conclude that the impact of COVID has led to more people going without food. Now, here in Barbados, we witness Barbadians losing jobs. We witness Barbadians not being able to pay bills simply because the little income that they were getting wasn't enough during the COVID pandemic. And there were even cases where people had to be given food. Certainly in my constituency in St. Philip South, we launched a program that dealt specifically to giving food to people in the constituency because we recognized the rise in unemployment. And we also recognized the drawdown on people's savings. And many Barbadians, particularly those within the middle to low income group, do not have substantial savings and undoubtedly live from paycheck to paycheck. So that if you are living paycheck to paycheck and suddenly you lost your job, it will be only a matter of time before you undergo some severe stress. And my ministry, given the challenging times and perhaps the objectives that we have set ourselves in the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security, we are no doubt conscious of the times and the role that we have to play. Now, there are several things that are impacting us. Supply chain interruptions for sure. Being able to get access to food and food in a timely manner will, at some point in time, hit us head on. And I am saying this simply because I'm acutely aware of the fact that shipping to Barbados, or what we consider to be marine logistics, have become more and more challenging. And equally, if you're looking at air freight, that too will become a challenge unless we have dedicated cargo planes that will ship food within CARICOM. And I'm saying within CARICOM because I want to get to a point in this conversation where we understand the importance of a Barbados-Guyana relationship and a Barbados-Suriname relationship, and then the hardcore reality of making sure CARICOM, member states in CARICOM, get on board with the initiative of reducing our regional food import bill by 25% by the year 2025, or what we are referring to as 25 by 25. I've been looking at the data, and to be very honest with you, 25% reduction in our food import bill is very real. But I am conscious of the fact, too, that given what is confronting us with the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, we may very well need to increase from 25% perhaps to about 50%, as the Prime Minister of Barbados rightly said at the Agri-Investment Summit in Guyana just over a month ago. So what is it that we in Barbados need to do? We are challenged, certainly, by meeting the rising costs of food in Barbados. I've been reading in today's newspaper that if a household is supposed to be able to continue eating comfortably, that the person going to the supermarket cannot try new products. Now, that person must be careful in choosing from the shelves and can only purchase those things that make up a basket of goods that they will consume. So perhaps you can't try some shrimp if you didn't have shrimp on your list before. And perhaps you may not be able to purchase maybe some duck if you never purchased duck before. Because the reality of it is that the prices have gone so high that Barbadians are now under severe pressure when they go in the supermarkets. The article in today's newspaper brought home the message very clearly. And there are some people who commented, and they're absolutely right. And I've told you all of what I told you to get you to this point. The first objective is for every Barbadian to recognize that they should grow food in their backyards. That's the first thing. I have plantain at home. I have bananas. I have pawpaw, sweet potato, some herbs, golden apple, and I am now preparing to plant some dwarf avocado because I love avocado, and some dwarf mangoes as well. My space is not a big space, and I heard Eddie mentioning that I did some farming before. In truth and in fact, I took over a small pig farm when my mother migrated to New York. And I felt that since this was her way of feeding us, that I shouldn't just let it go to nothing. And therefore, as a boy, youngster, still doing school and preparing then to get into the employment arena, I went and continued that pig farm. It didn't last as long as I wanted it to, because, to tell the honest truth, there was a major challenge in getting carcasses through the system at BAS where I was a member. That's a different story, but I digress to tell you that, simply to let you know that every Barbadian, where there's a will, can find a way to plant food at home. My ministry is given technical support, and we recorded a series of how to do videos in 2020 that you will start to see again. They will be on the GIS social media platform. So you can go on YouTube and you can see how to do gardening, how to plant crops, how to prepare the soil, how to do mulching, those types of things. And then we are doing a new series as well using one of the farmers from up this side who is a very capable farmer, Mr. Nichols. I believe most of you would know Mr. Nichols from Mount Wilton. Yeah? Very, very experienced, very knowledgeable. And he is helping us to prepare some of those videos so that you can actually go on social media and see how to do home gardening. But in addition to that, we are also moving with our Community Gardens program, which is Project CARE, Community Agriculture Response and Empowerment, CARE. And in Project CARE, we are using the resources of the ministries through the BADMC and the BAMC to come to communities that are identified for people to be able to grow food in those communities. So you may have, let's say, for example, a community group here in St. James North with land idle. It is overgrown with bush or grass, attracting monkeys, of course. Somebody did, under their breath, mention if I got monkeys too at home. No, I don't have any monkeys, but I heard you. And the community garden program can bring together people, first of all, for the fellowship in the community, so that rather than me and my next door neighbor have a quarrel over something foolish, we can come out in the community and do some gardening and provide food to serve that entire community as well. And through this program, Project Care, we are making sure that areas are identified, and we've started the project already, right across Barbados. In the Pine Basin, for example, we have identified some areas where the project will be done. And then we are asking the churches to get involved as well, so that through the church, you can bring members of the church to get involved in the project so that they can do a project, and through that same church, the produce can be shared with families who attend the church or families within the community. Project Care will come with the support of the ministry so that the cultivation is done for free. The clearing of the land is done for free. It does not end there. We also have what I consider to be a toolkit of items that will come to the community. So you get a fork, a hoe, a garden hose, spray can, and of course the watering can, the handheld watering can that we would have seen our grandparents using back in the day to also water the plants. And then you will also get the planting material to start. So in that toolkit, you're getting fork, hoe, wheelbarrow, garden hose, spray can, watering can, and you will get planting material. Now we are targeting the crops that you're planting because we recognize that it would be out of reach for us to allow for everybody to decide, I want this, I want that, I want the next. So we're targeting those crops. And within each community, it is my fervent wish that MPs take the lead in making sure we have at least 3 or 4 community gardens in every constituency. When that is done, we are able then to address what I read today in the Sunday Sun in terms of increase in prices for food, for the basics. Equally, I want to see Barbadians return to the days when we were very healthy. I use myself as an example. Previously, I was 175 pounds, ran almost an hour every morning. I lived in a place called Clifden, and by dint of the name, you should understand, Cliff. It was a very steep hill that I ran over every single evening. I was extremely fit. Living in terraces and the heights, and with a job that I have which does not give me enough breathing space, I work sometimes 36 hours in a day. Is that possible? That is what it is that we are confronted by, and we definitely need to carve out that space to get back to our healthy diets and exercise. And so through Project Care, one of the deliverables will be for me to see a reduction in NCDs in Barbados, and for me to see children eating vegetables as a part of a meal rather than what I am told is existing today, where children are given a plate of macaroni and corned beef. And that this must come to an end, because if we are to save this nation, and indeed if we are supposed to take Barbados forward, this conversation is not about me or anybody I can see in this audience, perhaps with the exception of Kofdi Waller. And I am saying that because we are going to transition to the departure lounge very fast. But those behind us, the children, our children and our children's children, are the ones that will take over from us. And in so doing, we have a moral responsibility to make sure that they are exposed to healthy diets, and that we must change their eating habits to the extent that our school feeding program should be such that children no longer hear about macaroni and corned beef that is being led by Trevor Prescott. And Trevor Prescott, Dr. Chelston Bradford, will be the two champions of this project here, and they will be making sure that right across Barbados, we can support Barbadians by helping them to grow their own food. If Pressy is involved in this, I know exactly where his focus is going to be, and that is the reason why I have him involved. His focus is going to be straight with poor people. Straight with poor people, no questions about it. So that people who are living in the St. Michael area, in the urban corridors of Barbados, they will certainly be the first beneficiaries of such, as far as I am concerned, relevant program for these times. And Barbadians and citizens of CARICOM, because we are not just Barbados alone, we are members of CARICOM. And under the CSME construct, I believe by now every Barbadian should have a consciousness that they embrace the Caribbean, CARICOM brothers and sisters. And we must do this because that relationship with Barbados and Guyana is about the best example you can find in terms of how the Caribbean can unite and how we can work together within CARICOM. Out of that program at Lears, we will also have the availability of land for community gardening, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. And we are hoping that this will be attractive to seniors, people who have passed retirement age, don't have a lot of recreation, don't have space for recreation, and can come out and foster relationships and get in some good exercise doing community gardening as well. And then the establishment of a food terminal right there in that area for the hub and spoke model. And by hub and spoke, what I mean is that you have one location. You see a bicycle wheel? It has a hub, and then all the spokes going in different directions. That is the principle of hub and spoke. And so from that terminal, we will be then shipping food to the rest of CARICOM, either by air or by sea. And the logistics are currently being worked out so that when the food terminal is built at Lears, Barbadians will have an opportunity, first of all, for jobs. We'll have an opportunity for selling food to the terminal, and that the government of Barbados is actually now changing the relationship with farmers, so that a farmer in planting 10 acres of sweet potato or okras or pumpkins don't have to stand and watch them waste in the ground because they weren't able to sell them. Because at the food terminal, we will be creating storage capacity, and the government will be buying your produce. So you no longer have to worry about whether or not you will be able to sell what you grow. And the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Security will make sure that we work with all of the farmers in Barbados, small, medium, large, in helping them to be able to grow more. We are currently working on a production plan through the BADMC to increase production in Barbados. We are at Mount Poirier. Over there, there's 76 acres of land that is currently being planted with all types of things: sweet potato, yam, pumpkin, pawpaw, you just name it. And we're also doing the same at Bath for the Rastas. We now have 3 Rastafarian groups at Bath: Akibulan, 12 Tribe, and Ikar. And Bath has been designated the area for the Rastas of Barbados to be able to grow food. And guess what? To get them going, the government is providing all the planting material for them. We've done all the cultivation services as well, and we have a technical officer designated to Bath and to St. John to provide assistance for the farmers over there. And a project is also started at Wakefield with young people. A lady sent me a text message yesterday telling me that she made $1,760 from her first harvest, and were it not for the dry season, she would have made more. Now, that project at Wakefield, my friend Charles Griffith called it Project Phoenix, but for me, it is part of our feed program, Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive, which was launched in 2019. And under the feed program, we have just over 1,200 people who would have applied or have been trained, and our target is 2,000. When the Prime Minister set the target in 2018, between herself, the Deputy Director General of FAO, and I, we met at the Prime Minister's office at Bay Street, and we looked at how we would make food security a reality in Barbados. And the first thing we recognized is that we had to make sure food is always available to people on a consistent basis. And out of that, I went to the ministry and we created the feed program, Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive. And so at Wakefield, they're growing crops over there, many what we call cash crops: cucumbers, pumpkins, lettuce, etc. And then over at Spencer's in Christchurch, you come up from the airport and you would have seen land, a whole set of bougainvillea, and behind there nothing but bush. That land is now into production, growing food as well. And further to the north of that land, we are creating some 26 acres for livestock farming as well. And that also is being prepared for livestock farming. And over at River, those of you who would have seen the launch of the reservoir, we have put in a reservoir. At River, the farmers were suffering badly. You planted crops and watched them dry up in the dry season. And there's a fair amount of money farmers were losing planting in the dry season, hoping to get water either from rain falling, which was not happening due to climate change, and also by the pond going dry and people blocking upstream. So we put in a reservoir with 6 million gallons of water to satisfy the farmers downstream at River. And the irrigation system is going in place so that they can have water. And if you drive past Lears, there's also a reservoir for 21 million gallons. And in those reservoirs, the one at Lears, we're doing freshwater fish, catfish or tilapia. And at River, we're given an opportunity for Barbadians to grow prawns and cut down the import of prawns into Barbados. So that if we can cut down on importing prawns and fish, and then we can cut back on the things that we import, like broccoli and those types of things that we are now growing, and putting in the technology as well, using hydroponics to be able to grow these crops, then I would say that if I thought that 25% when it was first announced was too ambitious, I'm convinced that we can surpass it. and get to 50% of food being grown locally and targeting the food import bill and reducing that import bill by 50%. What makes up the food import bill? A lot of things that are driven by our lifestyles and our palates. A lot of processed foods that we don't necessarily need to consume, but we do. And it is true that primary agriculture produce is part of that bill, but it is not the substantial part of it. The big part of our food import bill is a lot of processed foods and a lot of things that we can produce locally, like wines, for example. Somebody gave me some aloe vera wine, made locally. A bottle is about $16, so it's cheaper than imported wine, but tastes real good, and it is not sweet. And if we can then empower Barbadians to do more of these things, then suddenly you can see why I am so convinced that we can reduce our food import bill substantially. We are now at the stage where I don't want to just see land cultivated, because for me, that is a wish list. That is wishing and hoping. I actually want to see the crops on the land. So what you will see going across Barbados is a lot of land cultivated, and I'm thankful that is cultivated. But coming this rainy season, I want to see those lands turn green with food, not going back into bush. And that is the reason why we have the BADMC now under extreme pressure, trying to provide the planting material for Barbadians to be able to plant up the lands and give us the food security that we have targeted in this country. There's in the plan members of communities will benefit, householders will benefit through backyard gardening, commercial farming through the feed program, and of course, increased support from the ministry. Barbados will benefit, all of us will benefit, and we shall satisfy Barbadian consumption by being able to give them access to what I consider to be better priced food. I don't want to say cheap, because it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. And cheap got other connotations that I don't want to associate with food. And so therefore, if you can get better prices through increased production, I think that this is a plan that all of us will benefit from. And so I hope that I didn't bore you, and equally, I hope that you're satisfied with the plan. But there are two other things I want to draw to your attention. My friend here spoke about monkeys. I took a trip out with some of the hunters. We actually have people who go out and check to see what the monkey population is like and how we can capture monkeys. And I went out one Saturday morning. I left home probably around 6 in the morning. And I went to places in Barbados that I didn't even know existed in a 4-wheel drive vehicle with some fellas. And not a single monkey came out. Right? I tell you, I went to places that I have never seen right across Barbados during that 4 hours of driving. Not a single monkey came out. When I left and went back home, and they went back, one of my colleagues called me and sent me a picture of one monkey that they were able to capture when they went back out. The point that I'm trying to make to you is don't fool yourself for one moment that nothing isn't being done about the monkeys, because something is being done. But this topic I shall keep within the ministry, because I recognize the sensitivity of it. And when people convey the wrong impression, we then incur attention globally that we don't need. All right? And I am not going to take any inhumane approach to dealing with monkeys, no matter how much pressure is brought to bear on me. I'm not doing it. So please don't ask me to. All right? We are capturing the monkeys. We have an arrangement with the Wildlife Reserve. We have targeted that we can remove approximately 10,000 monkeys from within our space. All right? That is going to take some work. If you see a troop of monkeys, okay, and you were so inhumane to fire a shot at one, what's going to happen with the others? They're gone. So you're wasting time. Okay? We have to capture them. The Wildlife Reserve is working with us, and I strongly believe with the program we are putting in place, which I will announce once I'm finished, and you Barbadians will also get a chance to participate. All right? Because I feel you, I hear you, but I am not going to put Barbados in a bad place. All right? The other thing I want to draw to your attention is petty larceny, and nobody can whisper it. You're waiting for me. Petty larceny. Petty larceny is a problem in this country. All right? There are a fair amount of dynamics, but again, there's certain things that I like to leave alone. All right? I have before the Cabinet of Barbados the petty larceny legislation that is going to go to Parliament very shortly. And I am not one of those ministers that come and say very shortly, because that is something that I heard in another administration. Very shortly meant to keep you quiet, but it will never happen. All right? In this case, that legislation is before the Cabinet of Barbados. So I can speak to you with certainty that we will be getting that legislation to Parliament. I've already gotten the Attorney General's certificate for it, and we will address the issues with petty larceny. But you have a role to play in all of this. And when the legislation is passed, I'm going to be watching, because it's going to require every vendor and every person selling agricultural produce to show a receipt for those items. And if you don't ask for it, and you go and you buy stolen produce, shame on you. Because I am convinced that I'm not referring to you, love. I am convinced that we have a way of bellyaching about things. But when you put systems in place to deal with them, we also have a way of trying to ease around those systems. I saw a ZR park yesterday on the way to Trimark. I ain't going to call the ZR number, but it had me so vexed, I really feel like I was going to address it publicly. The man blocked the road, waiting for somebody to come out of a gap. All right? That we must stop that kind of behavior in Barbados. And were it me coming through the gap, I would tell the man, you go. But I can say it because it's more easily said than done. But you need some discipline in this country. And so when we pass that legislation to help you to be able to deal with the problem of petty larceny, I hope all Barbadians respond. And we also add in the traceability systems to it as well, so that electronically you should be able to check through a barcode which farm the produce came from, which is part of our food health system that is being developed. Now, I've heard all the criticism. I've heard all the complaints. I don't take any of these things personally, because I know that this is a time issue. I also knew that we had to consult, and we consulted with the Barbados Police Service. We consulted with the farmers. We consulted with vendors, and we are going to consult again before passing the legislation in Parliament, because I want to make sure that every single Barbadian gets a chance to add his or her voice to this piece of legislation. And I want to make sure that everybody involved, vendors, supermarkets, all them, get a chance to speak to it again so that they can say, I didn't know. What is happening? We're going to increase the penalties. That's one of the things everybody asks about. I'm not going to say right now, but we are going to increase the penalties. All right? And there's going to be serious monitoring by the Barbados Police Service as well. And I can only say to you, the rest is up to every last one of you to make sure that you participate in a system that will be free for all to join, but can give no guarantees without your support. And for that, I'm obliged to all of you.